Hi, it's Nikki here from Happy Hormones for Life, and today I am talking to the lovely Sara Price, who worked with us a couple of years ago. And I just wanted to ask Sara about her experience and what were the results. So welcome, Sara. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
What kind of issues were you struggling with before you came to see us?
Oh my goodness. I think the list is pretty much endless, if I'm honest. I was basically burnt out. And interestingly enough, it was the first, I'd burnt out a few times before that, but this was the first time that it really affected my mental processing. And that was the thing that made me, that really scared me. I think when I first started talking to you, I was genuinely scared because my memory was patchy. I had that kind of mental fog, inability to concentrate, not to and on top of all the other usual burnout symptoms of just being completely exhausted. My legs felt like lead all of the time, so I just felt heavy, and I was having all sorts of digestive issues. My hair was thinning, my skin was drying out. I mean, really, endless symptoms. But it was the mental fog and the impact on my memory that really started to frighten me, because I think in all previous instances of burnout, my symptoms had been physical. And this was the first time that it had really affected the way that my brain functioned. And that was really quite terrifying.
Did you try anything else before you came to us? Did you go to your doctor or anything like that?
I went to my doctor, who, to all intents and purposes, said, it's your age, you'll just have to get used to it. Don't get me started on that. And then, I read all the self-help books and self-care, and, well, you're burnt out, so you need to sleep and you need to rest and you need to meditate. And I was doing all of those things, and I just wasn't getting any better. And I'd actually taken, or was about to take, a sabbatical from work, which was meant to be a 3-month sabbatical, ended up being 5 months. So I was resting and, all of that, and I wasn't getting any better.
So we did some tests, didn't we? I think you wanted to run all of the tests that we offer. What did they show up? What was the main thing that came out of that?
I have to be honest, I was slightly horrified, but also massively relieved, because as a result of getting all of those test results, I finally felt like I understood what was going on. And really, I remember having the conversation with you, and obviously you and I have known one another for a while, and so you knew what I was going through. And I remember you saying to me, it's not surprising to me that you are struggling. What's surprising to me is that you're still going, because my results were so bad. And what we discovered was my hormone levels were all completely out of whack. I had way too much estrogen. I'd been on HRT for a very long time as a result of cancer treatment. And, you were saying you shouldn't be on this. Your estrogen levels are too high already. I had very little testosterone in my system. I had all the markers for adrenal fatigue. And then all of the, not all of my nutrients and micronutrients were low, but very significant ones were. So I seem to remember that my vitamin B levels were very low, my vitamin D levels were very low. And I had very high inflammation markers as well. So there was a huge amount of inflammatory response going on in my system. And then the other thing that showed up that just started to make sense of so many other things. I was diagnosed, it must be 15 years ago, with hypothyroidism. And I had never been tested for any kind of autoimmune condition. And the tests that you ran indicated that there was an autoimmune response going on that was most likely Hashimoto's. And everything started to click into place at that point. So many of the symptoms that I was experiencing were autoimmune symptoms. And that, again, as I say, I was kind of upset because there was, it was quite a shocking set of results, but also just so relieved to have some answers at last. And to therefore know that there was something that could be done, that I wasn't as my doctor had kind of said, you know, that I wasn't doomed to have to just put up with it because it was my age.
And how old were you at that point?
47.
Okay, so
yeah,
he was saying that it was just that your age and you had to put up with it at that
exactly, and
young age of 47.
Exactly. You're probably, you know, it's probably just your age, dear. And I've never been so cross as I was after that particular consultation, because he, you know, I had gone into menopause at 32 after all of my cancer treatment. So I could see him wanting to say, you know, it's the menopause. And I was kind of hoping he was going to say that, so I could say, well, you know, I've been dealing with that for 15 years, so I don't think so. And, you know, you've had me on HRT for 15 years, so also don't think so. But he didn't. He just said, it's your age. Like I'm some kind of, I don't know, worn out old banger. It's really infuriated. Anyway.
Really more insulting, really. But so what happened when you got all these results? What did we change? What did you change? I didn't change anything for you, but you did the work. So what did you actually do?
Well, first of all, I ordered the biggest quantity of supplements the world has ever seen.
Because we had so much going on, didn't we?
We had so much going on that, you know, and now I take far fewer. Now I take 3 or 4 really on a regular basis. But at the time there was so much that needed to be corrected. So we did a supplement regime to get all of my micronutrient and nutrient levels back up into a normal range. I went to see a specialist GP to look at the hormone situation and get my hormones sorted out. I came off my HRT immediately and have never looked back. And just generally, you know, was able to take really simple steps. I took dairy out of my diet, and I took gluten out of my diet, both of which immediately I could feel the difference in terms of the inflammatory response in my system. And massively increased, you know, all the things that you know that you should do. So green leafy vegetables, lots of, I call it the kind of multicolored fridge. You know, I open my fridge and there's just lots of color in my fridge now, because you know, reds and yellows and greens. And so I have a more multicolored diet now than I used to have. Certain things that, you know, I've tried reintroducing gluten on several occasions, only to be reminded that it really doesn't work for me at all. Yeah. So it was mainly about my diet, supplementation for a while, and going to see a doctor who understood that it wasn't just my age, that there was actually something going on hormonally that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I did, you know, as I say, I extended that sabbatical. So I was five months altogether of resting and focusing on my health and well-being.
And how did you feel after that 5 months? What happened?
I honestly felt like a completely different person. Now, you know, hopefully people listening to this aren't going to get to that point of being completely burnt out.
Yeah.
And, you know, you won't go and see Nikki, get all your tests done and then have to take 5 months off. You only have to do that if you end up in the situation I was in, where I was really kind of on my knees. But at the end of the 5 months, it wasn't just that I got back to where I had been previously. I was like a new and improved version of myself. You know, I got back to the energy levels I had had 10, 15 years previously. And I'd learned a lot about my body. I'd learned a lot about what it needed. I'd become much more mindful about what I put into my body and what I do. And as I say, my energy levels and my cognitive function, my mental functioning was just so much sharper, that I came out of my sabbatical and I had the energy to start a whole new business, which is the business that I have now. So, you know, I when I think back to how I was feeling when my sabbatical started, I didn't have the energy to work, let alone do everything that's needed to start a business. And 5 months later, I was starting a new business. So
we've just been catching up on how you've progressed with that business. Tell us a little bit about it, because it's just an incredible story. Because I you've just been telling me what's been going on for you at the moment, but back when we did all those tests, we were in the same mastermind group together, and you hadn't started it back then, and that was what, 2 years ago. In the last 2 years, you've created this incredibly successful coaching and business program that is, I was just so proud of you for a start, but also, you know, to have the energy to be able to do such a great thing with that is just, it's just lovely to see. So tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, so the business is called Actually, and it's about actually changing the world. So I work with purpose-led, values-driven entrepreneurs, business owners, people who want to make money and make a difference. And it was driven by, in a way, it was kind of driven by my fury, because I was so angry about the fact that so many people feel that if they want to make a difference in the world, they have to give up on the idea of making decent money, that you kind of have to choose between those two things. And it was something I'd experienced 20 years before, when I had to leave one of my favorite jobs. I worked for UNICEF, and I had to leave because I couldn't afford to pay my rent. And I remember this sense of massive unfairness and injustice, that because I wanted to do a job that made a difference in the world, I had to, you know, didn't have enough money to pay my rent. And Actually is the kind of culmination of that irritation 20 odd years later, where I've said, right, it is simply not the case that you have to choose between making money and making a difference. It is simply not the case that you can't pursue your passion and your purpose and make a profit at the same time. So I started Actually to work with people who want to do that, who want to grow their business, grow their impact, and make a difference in the world. And because I've spent 20 odd years in communications, PR, lobbying, and campaigning, the focus of the business is around communications. So I do communications training, consultancy, but I'm also a coach. And I recognize that mindset is one of the single biggest obstacles to people growing their businesses. So we also do coaching. And then we provide support. So I have a membership community where we support one another to keep that momentum going, keep doing the things you need to do to grow your business. And particularly for smaller business owners, this can be quite a lonely journey. You know, I talk about entrepreneurial loneliness. Even if you've got a small team, you're still the person that all the responsibility sits on. And that can be a really lonely experience. So I wanted to create a community of people who could share that experience with one another, so that we don't feel quite so alone in it. And that's Actually.
Even more so recently, with, you know, working from home and being so isolated and stuck.
Oh, absolutely.
We're needing that support even more, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Very, very proud to be one of your partners as well.
Indeed.
And, you know, because without your health, and physically and mentally, you can't change the world. You can't be that person, or be that leader that you can be. So for us, it's really important to be.
No, absolutely. And the Actually partners, it's funny, we were talking earlier about Laura Coleman, who I was talking to earlier today, who's also one of the Actually Wellbeing partners. And she said, you know, why did you, because when I set up Actually, I created this group of partners to kind of work alongside me, that I could refer people to, and vice versa. But the main reason I wanted people like yourself and Laura and others who work in the wellbeing space was precisely because of the experience I had with you, and the real certainty that gave me, that well-being is the platform from which your leadership, your business growth, everything else comes from that starting point. And if you don't take care of that, then, you know, if you're constantly sacrificing your health to build your business, then sooner or later you will fall over. And I have people say to me all the time, you know, I don't have time. I'll tell them to take a few days off, and they say, well, I don't have time to take any time off. I'm like, trust me on this. There is one thing that is going to be more inconvenient for you than taking 3 or 4 days off now. And that's taking 3 or 4 months off later. So really taking care of your well-being, getting the tests that you need so that you know what's really going on, and then doing what you're told, which has always been my challenge, but I did my best. But doing what you're told, and what the specialists and experts like yourself say, look, do this and you'll feel better. And I did.
such an amazing story, and I'm just very, very, very proud to have been a tiny, tiny cog in the wheel to get you
A very big cog. Thank you.
So thank you, Sara, so much. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you as always, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much, Nikki. Nice to see you.